Good evening. I'm Bill Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and I'm pleased to welcome you here to tonight's meeting of the Brighton Town Board, October 10, 2018. I would note that, as is the case for all of our board meetings, if you're here in the audience tonight and would like to review the materials that are on the agenda and all of the supporting materials, we have a packet on the back table that has all of that. But we also want to provide the opportunity for anyone that is viewing our meeting remotely, either live streaming on the town's YouTube channel or watching on our cable cast. You can also review all of the supporting materials, the agenda, and all the supporting materials we're considering tonight on the town's webpage, www.townofbrighton.org. We welcome participation in the meeting wherever you are. We're gonna start, as we always do, with a pledge to the flag. I'll ask Councilmember Werner to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is going to be a difficult meeting for all of us. This past week, we lost a friend. We lost a mentor. We lost someone who has given to the community and given to our nation the way very few do. Councilmember Jim Vogel passed away on Saturday. Jim served in the Marines, and you know, we talk about going into the service, and Jim was in the service. But then Jim took off the uniform, became a civilian, sort of. He continued as a very active Marine Corps reservist and also engaged in a number of veterans activities. But Jim, as a civilian, continued to serve in a most extraordinary way. We will miss him. The single red rose at his place amplifies the affection and the respect we have for Jim, his work, and his memory. I would like to read this statement that the town released concerning Jim, and then we'll have a minute of silence. I hope I can get through this. James R. Vogel, a longtime member of the Brighton Town Board and a true selfless public servant, passed away peacefully with his family by his side on Saturday, October 6, 2018. Jim will be sorely missed as a member of the town board, and our entire community mourns his loss. I had the great privilege to serve beside Jim as he proudly led community efforts to create the highly acclaimed Brighton Veterans Memorial. Jim's life was a legacy of service to his country in uniform as a colonel in the Marine Corps and the Marine Corps Reserve. But his life was also an extraordinary legacy of service to the community. Councilmember Vogel was recently recognized by the Brighton Rotary Club with the Paul Harris Fellow Award, recognizing a life's commitment to the ideals set forth in the Rotary motto, service above self. Following his service in the Marine Corps, and while still active in the Marine Corps Reserve, Jim served his fellow veterans through a leadership position in employer support for the Guard and Reserve, an organization that encourages employers to hire veterans, reservists, Guard members, and that also works to ensure that employers recognize the rights of veterans, reservists, and National Guard members and the importance of accommodating their ongoing military commitments. He was also a longtime supporter of Honor Flight and headed the Brighton Veterans Memorial Committee that planned and completed the Veterans Memorial in Buckland Park. As a town board member, Jim put to good use his many years of common sense experience as a human resource manager for Xerox Corporation, and was well known for his witty and savvy sayings, which helped the town board focus on and resolve some of the most challenging issues we faced. Jim continuously worked to maintain open, honest, and responsive local government and promoted the greening of Brighton through new parklands, hiking and biking trails, and the adoption of alternate sources of energy. Jim's community advocacy and passion extended well beyond the borders of Brighton. He was a faithful leader and board member of the House of Mercy, supporting their efforts to address homelessness in the Rochester area, and I would add, played an extraordinary role in the new home of the House of Mercy on Ormond Street in the city of Rochester. Jim and his entire family supported refugees who came to this community in search of peace and a better life, particularly those who left war-torn Kosovo. With all these myriad accomplishments and accolades, truly the most remarkable attributes that shined so bright in Jim were his humbleness, humility, and genuineness. Jim was a mentor, a leader, and he was my friend and my colleague. He meant so much to this town and to all of us who had the privilege to know him and the great pleasure to work with him. We wish his wife Kit and his children and grandchildren peace, and hope they know our hearts are with them all. Jim's obituary was in the newspaper. In case you did not see it, calling hours will be on Friday the 19th, October 19th, at Anthony's Funeral Home from 4 to 7 p.m. And a funeral mass will be held at St. Thomas More Parish on East Avenue at 9:30 on Saturday morning, October 20th. Jim, we'll miss you. Semper Fi. Oh, yes, thank you, Ken. Let us do please observe a minute of silence in Jim Vogel's memory. Thank you. I'm now going to ask Mike Deedy, Director of Operations for Willow Domestic Violence Center, to join me.
Thank you.
Mike, how are you? Good. October is Domestic Violence Month, and we have observed Domestic Violence Month here in the town of Brighton for a number of years, and in a few different ways. This weekend, Chief Henderson and I believe, along with our fire chief, or do we know, we've got a good
Big challenge going on, sir.
big public safety contingent coming out to Willow Domestic Violence Center's signature event, the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes event up at Shalott Beach. But I do want to read this proclamation. Whereas since its designation in 1987, October has been recognized as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month to increase awareness about the issue of domestic violence and to acknowledge that although we've made progress, there is more work that remains in order to free all individuals from having to live in fear of violence and abuse. Whereas domestic violence victim advocates, domestic violence service providers, and domestic violence first responders have estimated that each year as many as 13 million individuals in the United States are victims of intimate partner violence. And whereas more than 1 in 5 women and up to 1 in 7 men in the United States have experienced physical violence by an intimate partner, and sadly, according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, an average of 3 women are killed by a current or former intimate partner each day in the United States. Whereas in Rochester, Willow Domestic Violence Center works in concert with other organizations to prevent domestic violence and to help survivors of domestic violence gain access to services and support to live a safe and empowered life. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Brighton Town Supervisor William W. Maley, and the members of our town board do hereby declare October to be Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the town of Brighton. We extend our sincere gratitude to all who are providing support, shelter, and hope to survivors of domestic violence. We strongly encourage those who are currently being subjected to domestic violence to seek assistance by calling the Willow Domestic Violence Center 24-hour hotline at 585-222-SAFE, S-A-F-E, or by visiting their website at www.willowcenterny.org. And this proclamation is signed this 10th day of October, 2018, by myself and by my colleagues on the town board. Mike, I'd like to present this to you and to Willow.
Thank you very much, Supervisor.
And if you'd like to say a few words, we'd love to.
That would be great. Thank you for your
Thank you.
support. Thank you. First and foremost, on behalf of Willow, we extend our sincere sympathy for your loss. As indicated in the proclamation, it is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and awareness is so essential to this epidemic. The statistics are astounding. There are 50,000 calls per year to the 911 center related to domestic disputes. Our hotline receives in excess of 5,000 calls per year. We're not just about a shelter for women or men to come to. We have 49 beds and we have a wait list. We're constantly full. But we have counseling services, we have children's programs, we have court advocacy, and what many people don't realize is that 40% of survivors won't leave their domestic situation as long as they're leaving their pet behind. So we have a pet program as well. So there are a lot of factors that contribute to this epidemic. It takes a lot for somebody to leave their situation, an average of 11 attempts before they finally decide to leave. While there is a lot that we are doing, as Supervisor Maley indicated, there is a lot that can be done. And it is not just Willow. It is, if we didn't have the partnerships of our first responders, Chief Henderson, the towns, other programs, partners in this community to address this epidemic, we wouldn't be addressing the need as we are now. So we are ever so thankful for your commitment to domestic violence awareness, for your participation in your heels this Saturday. Look forward to it. Can't wait for the event. And if you are interested in the event, anybody in the audience or those watching, please visit our website. But most importantly, with those statistics, inevitably we all know somebody in our family, our neighbors, our friends, our coworkers who is impacted by this. And if you think there is a situation, ask them to reach out to our hotline, 222-SAFE, 24 hours a day. You don't have to commit to leave to come to a shelter. We can develop a safety plan with you, have a conversation, and start down the right path to addressing this need. So it's 222-SAFE, and I thank you again on behalf of Willow.
Thanks, Mike.
Before you let them go,
Mark?
so yes, Mike, we are going to wear high heels. I've ordered a custom pair this year, and for the first time after 5 years in doing this, I finally got an extra wide, and I'm told it'll be a lot more comfortable for me. So I'd like to acknowledge the work that you do as well. There was a period a little earlier in the year we were looking for training opportunities, and you were the first phone call, and you were able to fit in training to our sworn staff. Very short-term notice, and we were able to do it in conjunction with some other training. So I appreciate your willingness for that. Megan, yourself, the board of directors, we're often the first on the scene from a 911 call, and then we have to come up with a game plan. And Willow is that partner. You have a great partnership, and that's why myself, Chief Tantillo, the supervisor, and Chief McAdam will walk in heels, but we'll also, there's a fundraising aspect of it this weekend so that it can support your programs. I'm locked in a battle with Chief Tantillo. He's called in some markers from the Irondequoit community, so I'm fighting back. I'm putting out a picture of my granddaughter who will be joining me on Saturday, so if anybody's so inclined in the Brighton community to give, it can access our fundraising pages on Willow. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Again.
Okay, we will continue with our agenda, and as we do at every meeting, we will now, well, let me just, before we do that, the fire marshal isn't here, but fire marshal would not be happy if we didn't make our emergency announcement. If you hear the town's emergency alarm system, and you'll know it if you hear it, please leave the building, leave the room immediately. You can go either by the door to my right, marked with the exit sign. If you take that door, turn right, go down the stairs. That'll take you next to an exit from the building itself. Take that exit and move away from the building. Or you can leave through either of the two exits at the rear of this room, go through the lobby, out the main front door, down the steps, and away from the building. As we deal with matters facing the town, we do encourage anyone to come in and address the board during the open forum, whether you're talking about an item that's on our agenda tonight or some other item. And if you'd like to speak, we'll get to it in just a moment, please raise your hand. I'll call you to the podium. You'll have an opportunity to, if you would please state your name and your address and address the board. And in addition, if you're at home or somewhere else remotely and would like to address the board during the open forum, you can call 303-3060. That's 303-3060. Someone will take your call and relay your question or comment to me. If you're deaf or if you're hearing impaired, you can also participate in the open forum by calling our TDD line at 784-5205. Again, our TDD line, if you'd like to participate in our open forum, 784-5205. We'll now begin the open forum, please.
Hi, my name is Diana Cahill, and I live on 19 Montpelier Circle. And I want to discuss an issue in regard to the pond on Lacteville. I walk with my grandkids there very frequently, and the fence is in very bad disrepair, and I think it's a safety issue, because not only the kids going up and getting splinters and so on, but there are places where it's really broken and children could fall into the pond, and it's gotten considerably worse this summer.
Yes, it has. Okay. And I'm going to ask Mike Guyon, our Commissioner of Public Works, if you would address that and maybe discuss
Some
what
of
I
our
think is your
options.
recommendation, yeah, and your options, yeah.
So the first thing we looked at, we know the fence is in bad shape. We've had multiple eyewitnesses indicate that. We can see it ourselves. The fence is not in good shape. We took a hard look at it to see if it was really necessary from a car standpoint. Based on the calculations and all the literature reviewed, it really isn't necessary for a car. So we're going to look at possibly eliminating it, taking it out this year. I think that'd be the easiest thing. It would look nice. It would clear up the aesthetics of the area. We haven't come to a final decision on that yet, but that's sort of where we're headed.
Okay. Well, I trust your opinion on the safety of that, and I'm glad that there will be something done. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board during the open forum? Hearing none, we will continue on with our agenda. Can I have, oops, I think I see them under approval of agenda, but I'm really going to ask for a motion to approve the town board meeting minutes for September 12th and September 26th. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePoncio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. We have two public hearings on the agenda tonight. At our last meeting, I presented.
Supervisor, we approve the agenda also. We moved them out of there, but we still
Oh,
need to
yes,
approve.
we do. You're right, sorry. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePoncio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Okay, now, at the last town board meeting, we presented the tentative budget. I presented my our budget message. Really, it's a budget message. It comes collectively from myself, from our finance director, Paula Parker, and from our deputy finance director, Suzanne Zaso. Under state law, we are required to hold a public hearing on the budget. We're actually permitted to do so in November, and we have until early December under state law to approve the budget. That's something that for the last 25 years, we have done more, and I'm proposing that we do more again this year. Instead of holding one public hearing, we will hold two town board public hearings, both on the operating and capital improvement budget, as well as on the proposed assessment rolls for service charges, maintenance charges, capital improvements, and sewer rent charges for special improvement districts. With those public hearings taking place at our two October town board meetings, I anticipate that the town board will be in a position to take action on this budget at our second meeting in October, on October 24th. I'm now going to ask our finance director, Paula Parker, to present an overview of the budget, and after that, I will call the two public hearings to order. I think if we could, once she's, yeah, let's go back, and once you're ready, we'll dim the lights.
Yeah.
Oh, it's coming. Yep, it's coming.
Wow, this is kind of like repeating history for me. Here I am again. Last time we presented a budget to the town board, it was 2010, I believe, or somewhere after that. So I'm very, very delighted to be here tonight to present our 2019 preliminary town board budget. I wanted to say that the charts and graphs and the pictures that we're going to use tonight to describe the budget and talk about the operating capital for 2019 were put together by myself, Suzanne Zazol, my Deputy Finance Director, Amy Banker, our accountant, and Anna Bowles, our Senior Payroll Clerk. We're all responsible for putting the budget books together and getting the necessary materials published on the website. Everything is out there if you choose to look through those materials. I will not be presenting those in length, but in a briefer format, to the disappointment I know of all of my coworkers over there, who know I could probably ramble on forever when it came to the budget. And before we get started, I also want to say thank you to Supervisor Maley, the board council members, the Budget Review Task Force for all their guidance and support throughout the process. And I also want to shout out a special thank you to the department heads and their staff. Every year, the department heads put together requests. We kind of push back a little bit. They review their budget. They scrutinize their budget lines. We work together, and we can reduce many times expense lines where it is appropriate and necessary. We can also look at increasing revenue lines as well. So I wanted to thank everybody for all their hard work, and I very, very much appreciate it. So let's go. So I wanted to take a look at some of the departments, the services that the towns provide, and where your tax dollars go. So public safety and our courts at work. We have a New York State accredited police agency with 40 sworn professional dedicated officers. We're all open 24 hours a day. We never close. Services include the emergency responses, road patrol, criminal investigations, crime prevention, youth programs, animal control, and school crossing guards, which is very important. In 2017, there were 47,382 calls for service, which was up 4% from 2016. And while we're only forecasting 48,000 for the current year, 2018, that may end up going over that 1.3%. Time will tell, and I think when we're here again next year, we'll be reviewing those numbers again as well. We had 609 criminal arrests in 2017, and we're forecasting about the same for 2018. As part of the Community Engagement Initiative, there were a total of 95 community presentations that our officers were involved in. Our courts completed 10,480 cases in 2017 as well. Looking at roadway and infrastructure maintenance, we maintain 194.5 lane miles of roads, 83 miles of storm sewers, 41 miles concrete gutters, and 38 miles of curbing, in addition to 1,700 road signs. We repave and resurface treatments of roads with 17 miles of the roadways last year, 572 square yards of gutters, and 657 linear feet of the storm sewers in 2017. Snow and ice control on 318 lane miles of lanes, keeping our roads clear of snow and ice in the wintertime. We've got curbside brush and leaf pickup. In fact, we did 41,000 cubic yards of brush and processed 18,500 just about cubic yards of leaves in 2017. Also in 2017, we removed 44 trees, replanted 31, trimmed 150 hazardous trees, and 257 received the emerald ash borer treatment. Our Brighton Memorial Library provides a wide array of information, including books, multimedia, internet access, and online reference tools. Community resources, including computer classes, partners in reading program for seniors, tutoring and study rooms, the Friends of the Library Bookstore, Brighton Kiwanis Discovery Room for Children, and the Alice Wilson Low Vision Technology Room. Almost 58,000 reference questions were answered in 2017. We have 1,946 active library programs in 2017, with over 2,000 programs projected this year in 2018. 35,435 interlibrary borrowing loans were processed in 2017. We're projecting 36,500 approximately, and for 2019 up to 37,000. We have 7 parks and various recreation areas encompassing over 528 acres. In the current year, we've purchased just over 26 acres of parkland on Westfall Road. We're going to be expecting to close on that, and our debt service is planned in the 2019 budget.
And, what's you, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? We're ready.
Thanks for the info.
They are ready. So she can start.
I'll yell for you to go, okay?
Brief intermission. We'll get back to the budget. We apologize for the interruption. Getting back to Parks and Recreation, we've got 7 parks, 528 acres. We just did our purchase, as I said before, on Westfell Road. Recreation facilities, including 7 playgrounds, 2 lodges, pavilions, indoor-outdoor pools, 8 soccer fields, 7 baseball, softball fields, 4 tennis courts, 2 basketball courts, 2 pickleball courts, and picnic facilities. We have over 15 miles of walking trails. We have a lot of activities and classes year-round for all age groups. In fact, we've had 260 programs with 619 sessions offered last year in 2017. We also have the community garden and the farmers market and veterans memorial. The general government services by no means is an exhaustive list, but some of the important things we do are the fire marshal services that ensure compliance with fire and building codes. Public Works reviews construction projects for conformity with the town's comprehensive plan, zoning and community development goals. The Public Works also plans new town infrastructure development projects. We've just completely finished Monroe Avenue Green Innovation Program this season that will be finished, and then we'll be working on the Highland Crossing Trail. They also work on pedestrian and bicycle plan implementation as well. We do the cable broadcasting of the town public meetings. We have a town clerk who provides marriage licenses, passports, and conducts elections, collects taxes. Town historian collects and organizes and preserves historical town records. The assessor maintains, of course, property valuation records for all town parcels. I wanted to talk a little bit about the tax cap. The tax cap, we're under the tax cap, which is great news, again this year. In 2018, we raised, at the very top line, we raised $18,322,630. And we get to add to that 0.11%, which represents the adjustment from New York State on a real property tax base. It's a number that the state comes up with. We have no control over the number that they give us. That percentage is about $22,000 of increased tax revenue that we could raise. We also add in pilots of almost $600,000 for the previous year. That number then is multiplied by the 2%, which is, as everybody knows, the cap is going to be 2% or inflation, whichever is less. Then we have to take out our pilots receivable, and they'll be dropping down a little bit this year, down to $495,000. We get to add in a carryover after all the calculations are done from the previous year for taxes that we did not raise. No pension exclusions, there haven't been any for several years, which brings us to our 2019 tax limit of $20,036,530. The allowable increase from 2018 to 2019 would be $650,000 roughly. That represents 3.37%. We'll be raising just under $15 million for our town operating budgets, and we'll be raising just under $5 million for our special districts. That brings our total levy to $19,961,655, which is 2.98% of an increase rather than the 3.7%. If we focus on the operating funds, I want to note that this slide does not include our debt service. So the numbers are a little bit different than what they are in the presentation materials on the website, but the bottom line is the same. So for what we'll be raising for the library, for the operating fund, and for highway is going to be the $14,986,000. Again, that was on the previous slide. That's going to represent a $267,030 increase, or a 1.81% increase. Again, below that 2.98% by a full percentage point, actually a little over. We had some growth in our assessed taxable value this year because of the completion of our revaluation project in early 18. We now see about $3 billion worth of assessed taxable value as compared to $2.6 billion in the previous year. So our increase was just under $400 million, or 14.46%. The good news is we're going to be looking at comparatively reducing our tax rate per thousand by almost 62 cents here. We're going to go from 5.58 cents in the previous year to 4.96 cents in the current year, a reduction in the tax rate per thousand of 11.05%. And when we look at all the funds together, including special districts, you can see that there's our $14,986,000 here. There's the just under $5 million in the other slide. The total that we're going to levy is $19,961,000 roughly. The difference from the previous year, and then our total levy change is $578,145, again representing that 2.98% when we put all the special districts and the other departments together. I want to take a minute and talk about revenues. Revenues play an important role not only from the tax standpoint, but everything other than taxes. In the current year, we're going to rely on about 60.6% of taxes, and that consists of real property taxes that we talked about, our comitas that relate to those operating funds, and late payment fees on tax collections. So there's our 60%, and I'd like to let you know that that's down 2 percentage points from 2018 because we've seen an increase in our sales tax revenue here. We've gone up from $3.8 million in 2018, and we're looking at projecting $4,250,000. We've had departmental income fees are going to make up 7.3%. Our appropriated fund balance has gone up $100,000. So one of the funds, the highway fund, we're going to be actually using a little bit more fund balance this year, so that's going to make up 4.6%. Our mortgage tax, which is very difficult to predict and very volatile, is only 3.5%, and that's coming down slightly from the previous year. And the intergovernmental charges are the charges that we put to the other departments for different charges that we have. All other revenues, including the largest lion's share of that number, is the Cablevision revenues that we get from Spectrum. They're about $462,000 in that number. We get some state aid, 2.2%. We have $85,000 of appropriated reserves. Again, in the previous slide, I had called those two out. We have federal aid of $1,500, and then our interest is also increasing because interest rates are going up as well. So I want to just take a minute and show you our sales tax history. It looks like a nice, even, flat line. It looks easier to predict. So we're looking at, from 2010 to 2017, we've had just under a 9% growth. Sorry about that. Here. So what we've projected for 2018 is about $4 million, little over $4 million at that 5.5% against the budgeted $3.8 million. And in 2019's budget, we're looking at $4,250,000 for sales tax, which is good news. But you can see how that line is a little easier to predict, a little easier to get your arms around. And with the economy improving, I think we'll continue to see that increase yearly. Here's a look at our mortgage tax. It's a little messier, actually. We're looking at back to 2001, and we have a very tough time predicting this one. There's many factors that go into mortgage tax. It's sales. It's the dollars of the mortgage that get filed with the county. There's just all kinds of issues with projecting that number. So if you can see back in 2016 and 2017, we looked okay there. In the current year, we have to wait for our final payment. The first payment did not look as nice as they have in previous years. So in the current year, we've got $950,000 budgeted here, which makes sense if you look back. For next year, we're going to reduce that slightly to $895,000 because we feel that that's the number will be declining, even though sales seem to be picking up. By expenditure type, as you might expect, 75% of our expenditures have to do with salaries and fringes. We're a service provider. We have to have people to provide our services. That's normal for governments of actually all types. Coming in next is our supplies and materials at almost $2.3 million. 6.2% for contractual services, which can be in many ways like our personal services. These would be contracts that we would let and have for people to provide services that we wouldn't normally provide. 3.8% for our debt service. Our debt service is low in comparison, so it's under $1 million each year, and that is interest and principal budgeted there. 3.4% for equipment and capital outlay. 1.5% for utilities. A little over 1.5% for insurance and risk management. Interfund transfers are very low this year at less than 1%. And those are the items that would make up our expenditures by type. How the dollars are spent. What we're looking at is the police department is the biggest department in the town in the budgets. So that's at 37.5%, followed by highway and public works. $7 million for highway, $2.2 million for public works. Then next is our library at $2.1 million. Our general government support, things like finance department, assessors department, historians department, legal department, those kinds of things are in general support. That's $1.9 million. Our parks come in at 5.2 at $1.3 million. Recreation, 4.5%, $1.1 million. Our town justices are about $500,000. Our town clerk's department, again, about $500,000. And then the supervisor and town council coming in at 1.6% or just under $400,000. And I said town clerk at $4 million, it's $450,000. Sorry about that. So let's take a little look at our capital expenditures. We did adopt that plan on September 12th. So we're looking for the special districts. At the sewer district, relining $285,000 to continue relining, repairing our sewer pipes. We do have an aging infrastructure, and it's important to keep those updated. The sewer district is also going to trade in some Bobcats. This is net cost of the trade, $10,000 there. Sidewalk district, we're going to maintain 18,000 square feet of sidewalk. We're at $148,000, and of that, $10,000 will come from fund balance. That's reduced from $15,000 in the previous year. And in each year, we do contribute $75,000 to our ambulance district for the purchase of an ambulance, which we do about every 18 months. Our information systems, police, parks, and rec facilities are coming in at $976,000. For information systems, next year we have planned the replacement of servers and network and disaster recovery equipment at $47,000. We're doing our usual 3 police vehicles and continuing the body camera data storage. That's $145,000. We will be using $16,245 from some of the police reserves. Parks and Recreation, we're going to continue on the farmers market barn update. There's $500,000 scheduled for that. We have a park lodge repair scheduled for $25,000 and playground equipment replacement in Meridian Center Park for $98,000. We have grants to offset those expenditures totaling $549,000. In the facilities area on this building, the public safety wing, we have to do a door repair for approximately $30,000. We need to start engineering for the town hall HVAC replacement repair and also for the library roof. We anticipate those things will be costing about $160,000, but we'll be pulling $129,300 from fund balance and reserves as soon as we have definite final numbers in those areas. For highway and public works, we're going to be purchasing 2 large vehicles, 1 snowplow truck and 1 brush truck. There's also 2 tractors that will be placed and traded in again this year. That's about $8,000 in net value. So we plan on borrowing $415,000 in debt to buy those vehicles. The road programs, we're going to repave, resurface. We're going to repair storm sewers, gutters, and town sidewalks. That's going to come in at $1.2 million, just about under $1.3 million. We expect we're going to get $379,000 in grants. And for the road reconstruction plan, we do have a couple of roads planned and anticipated. We probably won't get to both of them, but we will plan on borrowing for both of those roads at $414,830. For planning, highway for Cobra headlamps on our light system. These are LED lights that will save a lot of electric for us. We have planned a 2-way radio system. The pedestrian and bike improvement is continuing, and the Highland Crossing Trail, which we spoke about a little bit earlier. Those projects come in at $1.4 million. We anticipate to have just over $1 million in grant funds and $180,000 already placed in the capital project reserves for the Highland Crossing Trail. Our forestry management, we're going to continue our tree trimming, removal, and planting, and that's scheduled to be $74,000. So that represents the $3.2 million that Highway and Public Works will be spending. And that's the end of my presentation for the board and for everybody out there. If you have questions, of course, you can always give the Finance Department a call. And I thank you for your attention.
So can you get the lights back there? Oh, sorry. Thank you, Paula, for that thorough presentation, and my thanks to Suzanne and your whole team over there for putting that together. Before I formally open the hearing, I just want to, I think one of the most important things, we heard a lot last year about the revaluation. And as you saw in the budget presentation, the assessed valuation of properties in Brighton was up close to 15%, 14.46%, I believe was the number. Almost all of that number represented the increase in valuation going from an 89% equalization rate to a 100% equalization rate. And we had a lot of concern. People got those statements and they wanted to understand that that didn't mean that their taxes were going to go up by the 10, 15, 20% that they might have gotten in their evaluation notice. And what you see is that the tax rate will decrease by over 11%. And when you net those two numbers out, that's in the the general operating budget, when you net those two numbers out, you actually wind up with a very small net tax levy increase of under 2%. So that's how that revaluation process balanced out. That was exactly how we anticipated that would work out. But I will now, Dan, has the necessary legal notice been given on the public hearing on the preliminary operating and capital improvement budget?
Yes, Supervisor, it has. The notice was in the Brighton Pittsburgh Post. I had the date before our brief intermission. It's since gone out of my head, but I will have that
That's fine.
momentarily.
That's fine.
October 4th.
And I do want to note, we have two public hearings tonight, one concerning the operating and capital improvement budget, one concerning the assessment rolls. Although we will separately open each of those hearings because that's the way it's set out in state law. We're not going to hold you to it. If you want to comment on the budget, don't get hung up on which part of the hearing you should participate in. I would encourage you to do the first one. So I now declare the public hearing on the 2019 preliminary operating and capital improvement budget to be open. Are there any questions or comments from the audience? Again, we will be holding a second public hearing on this budget at our October 24th town board meeting, at which time I anticipate that we will take action to approve the budget. Hearing none, are there any questions or comments from board members? We also, we talked last time about the really exhaustive but important public input process, starting with our budget workshops that were held in August, the reviews both by the Budget Review Task Force, but I also want to give a shout out to the Sustainability Oversight Committee. I believe they're going to come in with some thoughts at our next budget hearing. The input of both of those groups is very valuable. But if there are no comments, I declare the public hearing, the first public hearing on the 2019 preliminary operating and capital budget to be closed. Dan, was legal notice given on the public hearing on the 2019 assessment rolls for service charges, maintenance charges, capital improvements, and sewer rent charges for special improvement districts?
Yes, Supervisor, that was also in the October 4th edition of the Post.
And it was, notice was also given of that hearing in the newsletter.
The fall newsletter, the website, and the bulletin board as well.
And the newsletter is important because we have, as we have done since the Court of Appeals made a ruling a number of years ago, that all properties had to receive notice of the hearing on these assessment rolls. We expand the circulation of the fall town newsletter. It includes that hearing, so we have not only complied with the law, but also that Court of Appeals decision. And having done so, I declare the public hearing on the 2019 assessment rolls to be open. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on this public hearing? Hearing none, are there any questions or comments from members of the board? Then in that case, again, we will have a second public hearing on the assessment rolls on October 24th, and I declare this first public hearing on the 2019 assessment rolls to be closed. We'll now go on. We have no bids on the agenda tonight. We'll go on to communications. The one item you have in your packet tonight is correspondence from Bill Carpenter from the Regional Transit Service. We've talked in the past about the Reimagine RTS proposal from RTS. And in particular, we've talked about my very serious concerns with a number of elements of the Reimagine RTS plan, including the elimination of some services along Winton Road and Elmwood Avenue, the failure to provide so-called frequent service, in other words, 15-minute service along Monroe Avenue, despite the indication that the Monroe Avenue line, which is obviously a very, very vital service line with many commercial facilities as well as residences, service will not be anywhere close to the 15-minute cycle they recommend for so-called urban, densely developed areas, which this is. There are a number of other issues. Frankly, this letter indicates that they are looking, there's not a lot of guidance as to what they're proposing to change yet, but this letter indicates they're going to begin what they call Stage 2. Stage 2 references their mobility zone areas. To a certain extent, that includes, some pieces of Brighton, mostly farther suburbs, but I continue to be concerned. I will continue to advocate for improved and continued transit service in the town of Brighton. Transit service really goes hand in hand with our emphasis on pedestrian infrastructure, bicycle infrastructure. It is important for an inner ring suburb as we try to meet our sustainability goals, the broader community meeting sustainability goals. We just heard this past week that we have literally, potentially, 10 years left to be able to slow and turn around the rate of global warming. Climate change is real. Climate change is caused by man. That is a certainty. That is a scientific near certainty. And these latest studies that indicate we have 10 years mean we cannot afford to cut back on transit. We can't afford to stand pat on funding. And when I say we, let's be clear, the town really doesn't provide funding for transit. RTS does. But they need to, I believe, really go back and make sure that the state is recognizing these transit needs, make sure that employers, transit is a critical part of our efforts to address poverty. And we don't have much time to address poverty either in this community. There are a number of undertakings going on now, but a really critical part of it is transit, because housing patterns and employment patterns don't match. There's a lot of job creation in the suburbs. There's a lot of job creation in the city as well, but it is so important that people be able to get from their homes to their jobs. And in particular, we know the U of R, Strong Memorial Hospital, and their related facilities are Monroe County's largest employer. And yet when they eliminate service on Elmwood Avenue, they're eliminating service to the University of Rochester along that one line. And that's an important line. It serves Town Hall. People use the library for internet access who can't afford it, who are looking for jobs. Winton Road. So I'm going to continue to communicate, and I hope to be able to, successfully work collaboratively with RTS. But my message is this: we can't afford, as a community, to have our transit cut. These mobility zones, this Stage 2, what you're really talking about is not transit. It's much more akin to Uber, and that's not an adequate substitute for viable public transit service. So more to follow on that. There is another item of communication, and I'm not going to read it because the writer, while he's given his name, asked that we not provide any contact information. But I want to give a shout out because he's written about a Facebook group, the Henrietta Brighton NY Neighborhood Watch. And he's talking about Pete Boulay, who has been managing that Facebook page for some time. Among other things, one of the really important things he's been doing through that Facebook page is getting out in the West Brighton area and in Henrietta, not only the Brighton police blotter, but also the sheriff's blotter for Henrietta. I saw Pete over the weekend. Pete, you do a great job. You've asked me what kind of feedback I receive on your police blotter work. Well, you got some great feedback in this letter. I want to thank the person who wrote it, but I really do want to thank Pete for the work that he's doing in using social media to keep folks in West Brighton and in Henrietta in the loop. So can I have a motion to receive and file just the Carpenter correspondence, please?
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFazio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. New business, reading and approval of the claims. Jason?
Are we going to do committee reports, or?
Oh, yes, let's do committee reports. I told you I was going to struggle with tonight's meeting a little bit. I'm sorry. Thank you, Jason. Robin, Community Services.
Bill, the Community Services Committee has not convened in the interim since the last town board meeting. Our next meeting will be next Wednesday, October 17th at 9:30 a.m. at the Brookside School, 220 Idlewood Road. As always, members of the public are invited to attend.
Thank you, Robin. Finance, Jason.
Yes, the Finance and Administrative Services Committee met last Tuesday, October 2nd. Each of the items reviewed in that meeting appear on tonight's agenda for further discussion. In addition, we did discuss the budget that was presented by our Director of Finance in further detail, in the differences between the that were developed from the time of the budget workshop until this draft budget that's under review in the public hearing process. Our next meeting will be held on Tuesday, October 16th. We meet at 3:30 in the afternoon in the Stage Conference Room here at Town Hall, and the public is invited to attend.
Thanks, Jason. Chris, Public Safety.
Public Safety Committee met just on October 9th, and we began the meeting with a moment of silence, recognizing Jim Vogel's participation and contribution to that committee as its chair. At the open forum, a resident came in from Brooklawn Drive expressing a concern regarding chickens being maintained in a neighboring property and concerns about attracting wildlife and also about sanitary conditions there as well. And the town will investigate the sanitary conditions and the proper maintenance of that chicken coop. Now, if there was some discussion about animals in the neighborhoods, wildlife, we always have to remember that we live in their environment, and when we displace them, we're going to see them in our yards. If you have any concerns at all about animals acting oddly or look to be at all distressed or diseased, then please call 911, and we will be quick to react. Additionally, that individual was concerned about spoil material being left over from a construction work in his neighbor's yard as well, and Mr. Guyan's department will look at that site and see if the foundation excavation has been completed and whether that spoil should now be removed and the property maintained. He also expressed concern about the speed of traffic along Brooklawn Drive, people trying to make the light out onto Monroe, and also expressed some concerns about sight distance at that intersection. And the town will again investigate that, and we've already done a good bit of study on Brooklawn and other neighboring streets to determine speeds on those streets, and so far we did not see any speeds at an excessive level. But it's always safety at all of those intersections, particularly around the school, are always great concern, and we appreciate him coming in on that. Brighton Ambulance reported the highest calls of month so far this year, with 545 calls in September. Many of them were mutual aid calls, where neighboring districts call in and ask for our assistance when they have a higher number of calls than they can normally handle. There was some discussion about the cause of the 8% rise in calls year to date. Some discussion about whether the opening of the urgent care center at 12 Corners had any impact, and they indicated that there had been no significant impact as a result of calls from that facility, and that they were well screened there. We also mentioned the fact that our grand opening for the Brighton Ambulance facility is set for October 19th, and it's
November.
November.
Mike, no. November 19th, excuse me, I say, boy, already. But it's a beautiful facility, and we really look forward to doing our ribbon cutting and for the public to see it. Brighton Fire had 1,929 calls to date, a very successful open house, and thanks to everyone who made that possible and those that participated. Fire Prevention Week is this week, and the theme is Look, Listen, Be Aware, Fire Can Happen Anywhere. So please be aware of the fire hazards in your home and also necessary drills, especially with your children, but all members of your household. Brighton Fire assisted with the airport emergency drill, which is a countywide project at the airport. Homecoming went smoothly as part of our special events discussion, with the exception of a car accident that occurred prior to the homecoming event and appeared to have nothing whatsoever to do with that event, which was terrific, as usual, on that Saturday. Next meeting will be November 13th at 8 o'clock a.m. In the downstairs conference room. And the public is always welcome.
Thanks, Chris, and certainly the success of Homecoming, thank you too. Homecoming is a three-way event. It's sponsored by the town of Brighton, the Brighton Central School District, and the Brighton Chamber of Commerce, and we appreciate everything that all three of those organizations do. Police, security, safety, the Brighton Chamber of Commerce, and tents and entertainment. And the school district provided a great football game this year. Brighton won, and everybody participated in a wonderful parade. So thank you. That was the Public Safety Committee, and Chris, are you going to do the Public Works as well?
Yes, as well. I chaired the Public Works Committee meeting on October 2nd. At the open forum, a resident came in and expressing concerns about parking along Dale Road and the Dale Road cul-de-sac with respect to a wedding and an estate sale, and parking along the street, and some concerns about the properties being used for commercial purposes. The town has been made aware of those concerns, and those appear to be within the normal residential use, but we will continue to monitor that, of course. He also expressed some concern about use of another property as a daycare center. The daycare center there is a home daycare center authorized by New York State and does not fall under the town's jurisdiction, as we have investigated. There was also some concern expressed about the 25 mile an hour speed limit along Dale Road and the cul-de-sac, and they suggested that the speed be reduced, which we cannot legally do. 25 is as low as we can go, but of course people are required at all times to use prudent speed, and the cul-de-sac is an area where low speed is necessary. The resident also expressed some concern about glass debris coming to the surface along the Corbett's Glen Trail, and also about dog waste along the trail. And we will continue to model, obviously, our Parks Department will continue to work hard to maintain the trails and the wood chips and so forth along there. And we will continue to monitor the use of properties in that area and that no illegal businesses be operated there. Also, a resident from David Avenue came in and asked that a tree out front of his property be removed, and that is under review at Tree Council. We discussed bids and requests for qualifications, RFQs that have been issued for tree maintenance and removal, the Rose Garden, and the geotech analysis on Washington Street. Under new business, the Edgewood Avenue crosswalks and sidewalks were discussed. Residents have come here to Town Hall and to Public Works asking us that we consider first a crosswalk, which is being put in this coming year, I believe.
Correct. We're still, Mike, expecting that crosswalk to be built this season.
Edgewood, yep, we are still to be late this fall.
Edgewood, and that will connect, I believe, the sidewalks.
For some crazy reason, back in history, north and south of the Edgewood Bridge over 590, sidewalks are on one side south of the bridge, the other side north of the bridge. We're going to put in a crosswalk so that you know, all pedestrians, but especially kids, are able to cross Edgewood safely and continue to school or wherever it is they're going.
And residents from Stony Brook Drive have asked us to consider extending a sidewalk from Stony Brook up to Monroe Avenue, and the town is going to be looking at what the potential cost might be for the construction of that sidewalk and looking at the benefits as compared to those costs. Also, we are looking again and continuing to look at the cost of constructing sidewalks along East Avenue, which would connect the Pittsford sidewalk project, which would end at the Pittsford town line and allow us to extend that to Knollwood. There we have a particular challenge because of the height of the land at that area and some magnificent mature trees that would suffer if we tried to extend the sidewalk along that area. The suggestion was to put in a raised sidewalk, which may not be feasible given the requirements for the ADA because of the pitch of the sidewalk that might be required. So we're looking at all options. It'd be lovely to be able to, we would love it to be able to connect those sidewalks if it were at all possible. But one thing at least, with the reconfiguration of East Avenue and the wider shoulders, at least give a 4.5-foot stretch for that last, gosh, I don't know, it's 200 feet, 100 feet, and avoid having to take down those trees and so forth, and still be able to walk safely on the sidewalk system. Also, discussion was had regarding various trees that are under consideration for removal. Also, we discussed the guide rail, as was brought to our attention again tonight, at Lac de Ville Boulevard around the pond there. And a report was made by the engineering department to consider the state and American AASHTO. ASHTO, what is that, Mike?
They set up guidelines and specifications for roadway construction.
I was hoping you knew what all the AAs were.
I don't know it all,
but all right.
off the top of my head, I don't.
All right. But the guidelines regarding roadside design of guidelines, guide rails, and it appears that the guide rail there is not actually necessary, certainly for road safety, and that it was put in by the developer of that neighborhood project and development, and it may be a time that we just need to take it down. So still under discussion and consideration. And our next meeting is November 6th at 9 o'clock a.m. in the downstairs conference room.
Thank you, Chris.
Sorry to take so long.
New business, Jason, reading and approval of claims.
Yes, Bill, earlier this evening, I reviewed claims totaling $469,067.17. Notable claims include to the Depository Trust Company in the amount of $119,978.14, representing various debt service payments, including principal of $115,000 and interest of $4,978.14. These related to various capital projects as well as large equipment purchases. Also to Griffith Oil Company Incorporated in the amount of $11,608.36, representing purchase of diesel fuel. Also to Spinrite Incorporated in the amount of $76,791.26, representing continuing payments under our 2018 sidewalk replacement and repairs throughout the town. And also to the election inspectors for their service on primary day. We had 90 election inspectors, and the total amount was $11,534.50, paid for their services during the September primary elections, and we thank them for their service on that day. The claims all appear to be in order, and I move that they be approved.
Second.
Any discussion on any of those? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFazio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Robin.
On the next matter seeks to implement the New York State Department of Labor and Sexual Harassment Policy in complaint form in accordance with the New York State compliance requirements. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
This is Well, go ahead, Ken.
No, it's fine.
These harassment policies are driven by new state legislation through the Department of Labor that require municipalities to establish sexual harassment, but actually employers in general to establish sexual harassment policies. We have long had in the town of Brighton not only sexual harassment, but a broad harassment policy. But in order to clearly comply with the provisions of law, which go into effect as of October 9th. So I think we're probably ahead of most employers in taking this action when we are. But this will maintain our compliance with the state labor regulations. Ken, anything else?
I guess I'd just add that the sexual harassment policy that was adopted and finalized just this month, in the month of October, by the New York State Department of Labor, required a standalone policy. That's what's different here. And all of the other protections that we've had under local law prohibiting other forms of harassment and discrimination and unequal treatment remain on the books and still are the law here in the town of Brighton. So I think that's important. This policy, this law applies equally to employers as it does to town personnel, town employees, and the town government in general, including council member
gonna ask you.
Wilt,
Good.
yes, raised a question,
I did hear.
which I thought was an interesting one and a good one, saying, well, what about, making sure that we have anti-harassment policies and protocols for our own employees, including our own volunteer board members.
And elected board members.
And elected, well, so,
Elected
yes,
and
of course,
appointed.
electeds are absolutely employees of the town and are controlled by all of the policies that affect all of the town employees. So yes, you all, as electeds, are very much bound by those policies. But so are our volunteer board members, who are also under our town code considered employees for those purposes. So good question. I think we have it covered with existing law. The important message is that this is just one more standalone protection against sexual harassment, and I think also appropriate that we're doing it not only so quickly, but also in Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So all of that is what I have to report on that.
Thanks, Ken, and I'm going to encourage that you and Deputy Attorney to the town, David Dollinger, work with department heads, but particularly with Mike Guyon, who a number of our volunteer boards reside in the Department of Public Works, to make sure that our volunteer board members understand those responsibilities. Because I think, most of the time people don't think of those volunteers as being employees, but they are.
Right. I think perhaps an approach I might suggest is I would imagine that our personnel director, Tricia Van Putty, is going to be rolling this information out to all town employees, and it would be a good process to coordinate with her that rollout to the volunteer boards as well.
Good. And obviously, if to the extent there are questions, stand ready to, have them answered. Good, thank you. We have a motion and a second on that. Is any further discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Chris?
Next item is to authorize and declare one 1998 40 cubic yard roll-off container and 2 office chairs as surplus to be disposed of as junk. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
in Finance Committee, we had a little discussion. You see those dumpsters and they're big, ugly, metal, hefty things. But, yeah, they can rust out too. And
Yeah,
Mike assured me that, in fact, the bottom of this 20-year-old roll-off, and you can only imagine the stuff that's been in it over 20 years, really is rusting out and is no longer suitable. So I guess we'll get scrap value and probably not much more than that. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFazio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailing?
Aye, Jason.
Yes, the next matter seeks to authorize the transfer of funds totaling $13,350 from account D.HWI.5142.4.09 salt and abrasives to account D.HWI.5130.2.30 highway equipment to purchase a multi-purpose bucket for loader number 81. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFazio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailing?
Aye. Chris.
Next is to authorize the supervisor to execute the October 1, 2018 to September 30, 2019 Snow and Ice Control Services Agreement with the Monroe County Department of Transportation, including renewals for up to 4 additional years. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
We've talked about this before. Part of the opportunities we have to consolidate services, the town of Brighton, and this doesn't happen in every county in the state. The town of Brighton works at all the towns in Monroe County, work with the County Department of Transportation and the State Department of Transportation. We have plows and snow removal equipment. Our trucks, traverse county roads, they traverse state roads, and this is our contract with the county. We will, again, this snow removal year, plow county roads in the town of Brighton with the opportunity to renew for up to 4 additional years. And there's a formula that, it really makes sense for us and it makes sense for them to have us do it. It's a good win-win. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFazio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailing?
Aye. Robin.
The next matter seeks to authorize the award of the tree maintenance and removal services bid and enter into a contract with the lowest responsive bidder, Birchcrest Tree and Landscape, Inc., with the option to administratively renew this contract annually for 2019, 2020, and 2021. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And to be clear, this relates to initially the remainder of calendar year 2018. We had a previous contractor who was retained under a county contract.
That's correct.
And that contractor has failed to perform, and we will continue to review our rights based on that failure to perform, but it is important that we continue to have tree maintenance and removal services. We are a Tree City USA, but more importantly, or just as importantly, we also have liabilities and responsibilities for those trees, and we want to, when they have to go out, make sure we get new trees planted. So that's what we're doing with this contract, but we also will have the opportunity to renew it for up to 3 additional years. We've got that motion and second. Further discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFazio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailing?
Aye, Jason.
Yes, the next matter seeks to authorize the transfer of funds from A.DPW.1490.1.10 in the amount of $30,390 to accounts A.DPW.1490.2.13 for $2,800, A.DPW.1490.4.15 for $12,290, A.DPW.8020.2.13 for $3,800, and A.HWI.1490.2.40 for $11,500. to purchase items identified during the 2019 budget process that are completed in the current year with funding available from personnel changes within the Public Works Department. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
These are IT related items. Well, much of it is IT related, computer and some related software, some software upgrades for the DPW. It also includes a riding lawnmower that will be used at the landfill. And the budget transfer will cover those. We've got Jason's motion and a second. Further discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailing.
Aye. Matters of the supervisor, a couple things I want to discuss. One, I'm very pleased, particularly to let my colleagues on the board know, but really the community. You'll recall that earlier this year, the towns of Brighton, Pittsford, and Perrington joined together on litigation because the Canal Corporation, which is controlled by the New York State Power Authority, had proposed a clear cutting of canal banks in various areas in our three towns and to the west into Orleans County. And they got the work done in the western part of the county. But our three towns sued, and we sued because there had been no adequate environmental review of this project under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. You may recall that the state Supreme Court here in Monroe County ruled in our favor and enjoined the state from continuing with their clear cutting in our three towns because they had not done an environmental review. The period of time for the Canal Corporation to perfect their appeal will expire on Friday, and we have received word today that they will not be pursuing an appeal of that decision. Now that's good news, but it doesn't mean that they aren't going to continue to look at those areas of the canal. What I am led to understand is that they will again, probably over the winter, do some more study and analysis of what they're going to do. They have indicated that they will engage the community, hopefully to a greater extent than they did before. They've also indicated that they will treat it as a type 1 action under seeker, which requires a level of environmental review that they simply did not do before. So I hope they will listen. Safety of the canal is very, very important, and we understand the need to have a visual ability to inspect and to take any necessary action. But a clear cut, it seemed pretty clear to at least all non-canal personnel, was an overreaction. And the opportunity is there to look at, hopefully, a more, particularized approach, maintaining the integrity of the canal, but also maintaining the integrity of this incredible scenic asset that we have. Anybody that's seen the western parts of Monroe County and Orleans County, Albion, Ogden, some of the Brockport, some of those communities, clear cut means exactly that. And out in that part of the county, what they've indicated they need to do is work on, the remediation of that work. What I'm hopeful is that whatever work is done, particularized to the areas that are, potentially in the worst condition, but also where a breach would pose the greatest hazard, and that they do it in that kind of a much more site-specific way. They do it with community input. They do it with scientific input, and they do it in such a way that the impact to the phenomenally beautiful Erie Canal is minimized. So I'm really pleased, though, that having won the lawsuit, that victory is going to stand. And thank you to my colleagues, Supervisor Mike Barker in Perrington, Supervisor Bill Smith in Pittsford, and our respective lawyers, including Ken Gordon. Thank you. We've been talking a lot about traffic safety and pedestrian safety. I want to make the community aware of a project that we are looking at, and I anticipate we will be implementing very quickly, and that's the PACE Car program. PACE Car is a program that is being used in a number of cities across the country, 25 cities if you look at their webpage. One of those cities is the city of Rochester. It started in the southeast quadrant through their neighborhood service center in the southeast, and it's recently been expanded to the entire city. It's an idea developed by a traffic guru in Australia, who really, one of the things that I found so compelling about the PACE Car idea and about his thinking is his philosophy is very consistent with what ours has been, to try to calm traffic using minimizing capital investment as much as possible. We've talked about the budget. We want to calm traffic, but to the extent we can, we don't want to put bricks and mortar into it. We'd like to identify behavior modifying techniques, and the PACE Car program may potentially be such a program. The city of Rochester, I met with them, with Christine Corrado, with one of our zoning board of appeals members. We met with the head of the Southeast Neighborhood Service Center. She was very helpful, really had a lot of information about how the program has gotten started. She was very candid that they do not have real quantitative data that demonstrates a higher level of compliance, but I think it's a worthwhile program, and I think we will see that data. I think we will see that people do want to, at least a lot of people, want to drive in a safe way. And our goal is going to be, with this PACE Car program, there'll be stickers, there'll be some kind of indication on vehicles of people that are involved, that they're a PACE car, that they are going to follow the speed limit, that they are going to stop before they turn right on red, and all of the other various rules of the road. So look for that to be rolled out at upcoming events of various kinds here in the town. The concept is you will sign a pledge. You pledge to drive the speed limit. You pledge to stop at red lights and stop signs. That's not a rolling stop, that's a stop. You pledge to stop before you turn right on red. You pledge to give right-of-way to pedestrians in crosswalks and various other rules of the road. And when you make that pledge, when you commit to drive in a safe manner, you'll get the sticker. And not only will people see that you've made that commitment, but the other people on the road. You're going to be driving 35 on Elmwood Avenue, and hopefully that will encourage other people to drive 35 on Elmwood Avenue, and so on other streets. So look for that to be rolled out in the very near future. And I appreciate this concept being brought to our attention. It is being adopted in some big cities, some medium-sized cities. Boise, Idaho was the first city in America to really connect with this Australian gentleman. Durham, North Carolina seems to have a great program. And I know Chief Henderson just actually had the opportunity, not on this topic, but you met, I believe, the chief in Durham, North Carolina.
Attended the forum she was presenting at.
Right, exactly. So more to follow on that. Just a couple of one upcoming event in particular, the regular Friends of the Brighton Memorial Library book sale begins tomorrow. If you are a member, if you are a friend of the Brighton Memorial Library, you can get in tomorrow and get first pick of those books, and depending on how much you donated, a deal. And who doesn't need more good books? But it'll be open for the public then starting on Friday and running through Monday. So that's always a wonderful event. And a shout out to, you may have mentioned it before, but the Brighton Fire Department and their open house a week and a half ago. As always, a great family event. And I know several of the people here in the room were there. And again, it's an opportunity to see, just as all of our public safety organizations, they work together, and when they open their doors to the public, they're all there. The police were there, the fire was there, BVA was there, all showing their equipment, their personnel, and the ways they work together. So thank you, BVA, but also thank you, Mark. And I know Carlos, our newest police officer, was there at that open house, and a lot of people had a chance to meet him. That's all I have. Matters of the attorney to the town.
I just wanted to take a minute of our collective time and chat a little bit about Jim. I've been in and out of town government now here in Brighton for nearly 30 years. And from my time in the mid to late 80s as a member and then leader of the Brighton Democratic Committee, to my time in and around the change of the millennium as a town board member, the 4 years that I served, and most recently in my present role as town attorney. Jim Vogel has been a constant. He's always been here. A constant and stable presence on the Brighton Town Board and as a community leader. So as I sit here in my very first meeting of the town board without Jim Vogel as a member of that board, I'm missing his smile, I'm missing his wry comments, and I want to take a moment to inspect what I always came to expect out of Jim. Jim was first and foremost always a gentleman and a true diplomat in all his words and all his actions. He inspired me to aspire to those fine characteristics, and my memory of his humble disposition will be a treasure I will continue to carry with me. Jim had a huge heart and cared deeply about veterans, refugees, the homeless, and so many others who are in need in our community. Jim's desire to give of himself to help others will continue to inspire me in my community and my public efforts. Jim was always ready with a witty comment, too many for me to recall, and a smile, always a smile. Jim made everyone he spoke to feel that they were being listened to, made them feel like they mattered, and they did matter to Jim. Because he was truly a man of the people. I will remember and try to learn from his humility and his respect for others, and hopefully become a better, more compassionate person through memory of him and the standard he set. I miss Jim tonight. I know I will continue to miss him. I expect that those feelings will stay with me a long time, and hope that upon inspection of my feelings of loss over Jim's absence, I will find inspiration and motivation to emulate this truly special community servant. Thank you.
Ken, thank you very, very much. Matters of the town board.
Thanks, Bill. Sorry, there's a definite pall over this meeting. But our rec announcements. Fall is just starting, but we're already busy planning our winter-spring recreation program lineup. And if you would like to share your passion and enthusiasm for your career or avocation with our community, the Recreation Department is still seeking out new and energetic program instructors to include in our winter and spring brochure. You can complete our online program proposal form, and you might just find yourself in our winter-spring catalog. The form is online at townofbrighton.org. We're planning now, so don't delay. Our fall program brochures are available, and registration is required for that programming at Brighton Recreation, and space is always limited. Registration may be done online, by mail, or in person at our Recreation Department at Brookside School, 220 Idlewood Road. You can check out all of our exciting programs at townofbrighton.org/rec. We do have some upcoming events, and this weekend is our highly anticipated semi-annual electronics recycling and secure document shredding event on Saturday, October 13th from 9 a.m. to 12 noon at the Brighton Highway Department, 1941 Elmwood Avenue. And then we will have our fall Halloween events. Our sensory-friendly trick-or-treating event will be at Town Hall on Friday, October 19th from 4 to 5 p.m. Registration is required, and space is very limited for this event, so if you are interested, please do sign up right away. We then have our Fall Family Festival that has already been mentioned this evening at the Brighton Hall Town Complex, the Brighton Memorial Library on Saturday, October 20th from 10 to 11:30 a.m. Then our Halloween Happy House is at the Buckland Farmhouse, 1341 Westfall Road on Friday, October 26th from 5 to 6 p.m. And then the Haunted Grounds at Buckland Farmhouse will be later that evening, Friday, October 26th from 6 to 9 p.m. Finally, we have our semi-annual pharmaceutical take-back program with the DEA occurring on Saturday, October 27th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Safety Wing of Brighton Town Hall. We hope to see you at these upcoming events.
Thank you, Robin. And I'm staring at one more event right in the face, and I neglected to mention, but this is an important community meeting. Police Chief Mark Henderson and his senior staff will be welcoming the community to an open forum here at Town Hall in this room on October 16th, next Tuesday, from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. The discussion will include police-community relationships, community engagement, directed foot patrols, and community concern. And it's really one more opportunity, one more step in the ongoing community policing work of our Brighton Police Department. You heard during the budget presentation nearly 100 public presentations to some of the neighborhood associations, other different kinds of groups throughout the year. That's indicative of the importance that Chief Henderson and the entire police department place on outreach into the community, and this will be one more opportunity for that. Mark, is there anything you
No,
want
I just hope everyone can attend. We actually will be addressing the neighborhood the following evening regarding traffic concerns, but this is more, it allows for input. I know a number of speakers have come before the board asking for an opportunity to speak directly to myself and to staff, and that's what this is designed to do, and I look forward to Tuesday at 6 p.m. And we won't end at 7:30. If people want to go later, we'll go as long as it takes.
Okay.
And you're all invited. Hopefully you can all attend with us.
Bill, if I may,
Sure.
yeah, Ken very well said about Jim, but it's been a pleasure for 7 years to be shown by Jim what it means to be a town council person. But it was his habit always to dispel controversy and conflict with a phrase. And it got to the point that I couldn't stand it, that I wasn't remembering them, so I began to take them down. So for these last 7 years, I've been recording Vogelisms. And these are a few of them, colorful, entertaining. A few made me scratch my head for a while, but he usually got the message across artfully. They're just trying to perfume that pig, would be one. There's a clear paralysis of the analysis. Perhaps we should tie down first, and then we can move along. Now that deserves the point you stick in the eye award. Oh, they're just rearranging the chairs, and that had to do with commuter projects that are approved that produce no new jobs. Well, we don't want to get wrapped around the axle with that one. You may have to break eggs to make an omelet, but you don't have to leave the shells in. And that would leave us up in the highlands in a high wind, you say. And it looks like Coxey's Army is bivouacked there. Jim was born in 1938. Coxey's Army was 1894. Either way. And only Jim could use the word bamboozled. And in one instance, he said, well, that result would be short of witless. And then he said, well, in the end, feed them fish. If they don't like fish, chow is over. But my favorite is, he said, yeah, let's let Mike Guyon ride out front on that one and see how many arrows he takes. That had to do with Mike soliciting easements for the Highland Crossing Trail for free. And of course, inspect what you expect. And then the classic regarding the state buying prime commercial property when they had state land vacant just down the street. That's just downright dopey.
And
I'm gonna miss him.
you know, there was, miss him indeed. The other one, and Dopey was right up there, inspect what you expect. But he also used to talk about buying the sleeves out of their vest. God bless you, Jim. Jason, anything?
I have nothing.
Matters of the town clerk. I skipped you, sorry.
Nothing this evening.
All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So,
Second.
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFazio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mallon?
Aye. Our next town board meeting will be October 24th, 2018, right here in this room. See you then. Have a good evening, everyone.
Bye-bye.